You're listening to Stop the Madness, Keep It 100 with your host, Shawn L. Let and Tone the Stone on STMK Radio 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100.
Tonight, in the Red Room, we have a 57 mayoral candidate for the city of Cleveland, whose campaign for mayor is pretty simple. No big staff, no campaign strategist, or even a manager. No big campaign account. Mostly it's just him trying to talk to as many people as possible. He's a newcomer to politics, but he says he's a quick study, and he has shown his willingness to put in the effort. And that's evident by him qualifying for the ballot. His platform is better schools for our kids, reforming the legal system and our social justice system, to put City Hall back in touch with the community and bring power back to the people. So let's welcome Mr.
Dyrone W. Smith.
Mr. Smith, Dyrone W. Smith, Shaw High alumni. I'd like to welcome you to Stop the Madness, Keep It 100.
I appreciate you having me, Shawn.
Hey, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with a newcomer to politician. This young man right here, I want to say this, and I want everybody to understand this. He went out and did all the work himself to get on the ballot. So he is very serious about that. He got over 6,000 signatures, and all the signatures that he got was right the first time. Zach Reed, mayoral candidate, paid over $40,000 to do that. Mayor Jackson, mayoral candidate, paid close to $75,000 to do that. Eric Brewer had 16 people out doing and collecting signatures. This young man put in the work himself and got his signatures to get on the ballot, and we really need to look at his platform. Tonight on Stop the Madness, Keep It 100, we are going to talk to him, and we're going to talk about the issues. We're going to give him a chance to explain what he want to do. Now, Mr. Smith, the first thing we do to all candidates, and you are the biggest one coming on our show right now because you're running for mayor, so we want you to tell the people of the city of Cleveland why you want to be their mayor.
Well, the reason, Shawn, I want to be the mayor of the city of Cleveland is because I'm tired of riding over bad streets. I'm tired of sending my kids to poor performing schools. And I'm tired of the police treating everybody in the city like they're criminals. Our biggest issue in this community is investment and police reform, and the fact that there literally has been no democracy in our city, and I feel this as though our people have been left out of the politics in the city, and a lot of people have given up on even trying to vote anymore because they don't feel like they're being represented by the current political circle.
Well, let me ask you this. This is well known right here. The city of Cleveland has a lot of problems, and we're going to go into some of them. But there's 4 major problems sitting on your desk right now, the day that you make mayor, that you walk into. And the first one is the merger of the city of East Cleveland. Tell us, where do you stand on that issue?
I think it would be a good idea for the city of East Cleveland, but I've talked to many political operatives in East Cleveland, and the city's residents are not big on the merger, primarily because they want to keep their autonomy and their own identity. But I would be in favor of it. I know that their city hall in East Cleveland have not offered any fair options for the city of Cleveland. For it, 17,000 residents. It would increase the tax base for the city of Cleveland. It would be great. We would just have to get the people of the city of East Cleveland for it. And many of the people that don't want to merge are members of the city or residents of the city that's been here for years. So that's a big issue. And I think, in my opinion, I think the city hall in East Cleveland, and the council, they made it too difficult, I guess, for the 2 mergers to go on. But we'll also have to get some members of the city of Cleveland on city council. I know that Kevin Kelly said that it had to be fair enough for both sides. But I've talked to residents of East Cleveland. Even they said what the East Cleveland City Council was attempting to bring into effect was unfair. So there's an attempt, I guess, to spoil that resolution between the two cities. But I know that City of East Cleveland schools are doing very well. It would be difficult to ask them to come into our school system knowing that it's not performing up to par. So we also have to get some things straight in the City of East Cleveland before we move ahead with any kind of mergers.
Now, I want to stay right there in the city of East Cleveland, because the second biggest issue, and you probably already know where I'm going, that's going to be on your plate, is that East Cleveland dump on Noble Road. Now, the state of Ohio and the county has come out and said there's no health concerns, everything's fine, but the residents around there have some very serious concerns. So as the mayor of Cleveland, you have to ensure your residents that their health and their property value is not going to be damaged by that dump in East Cleveland. So what type of programs would you put in place so they know that you're on top of it and monitoring the situation as it should be?
There are certain grants that you can bid for with the state. You can apply for those grants with the state to help to clean up some of those dumpster sites. We could certainly do that. And Cleveland just passed an $80 million increase in taxes. Now, I'm not sure how much of that they'll be able to collect every year, but certainly some of that money could go towards, if we merge with East Cleveland, towards cleaning up some of those sites. If it's unsightly, if that's what the residents want, they want it gone, they have to realize that it has to be paid for, too. You have to put your money where your mouth is. That's how politics works. But certainly, if we merge with East Cleveland, it would be a good idea to, use some of those tax dollars, and especially those increases in tax dollars, to help clean up sites like that.
Now, the other issue that we want to go right to that's facing the city of Cleveland, and the residents is very, very concerned about that, and that's police reform. What is your opinion and philosophy as being a mayoral candidate to tell our citizens in the city of Cleveland how you would come in and reform the police department to ensure that everybody in the community is being treated with respect and equally?
Our police obviously are not very good to its residents. The city has been, especially the African-American population, has been hit hard by police abuse of power. There are a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. At the base of this, I believe, is accountability for police departments, especially like ours, in which the unions have essentially made the police department autonomous agencies. But, African Americans have been fighting for human rights, civil rights, and constitutional rights for several years. The first thing I would do is defund or end the Internal Affairs Division and the Office of Professional Standards. Based on the monitor's recommendations and analysis, they have not actually been holding officers accountable. I think today it's apparent that the internal affairs divisions of any police department is not adequate, that police cannot police themselves, at least not in this way. So what I want to do is create a constitutional protection unit so that the citizens will know that the police department has their best interests in mind and are attempting to protect their constitutional rights, which is what they're here for in the first place. They're not supposed to break people's constitutional rights. Big cities like Cleveland, they have high population densities. It's very difficult to control crime. And the community has to be one with the police in order for there to be changes. I'm not sure if you heard of broken bottle rules, where police officers are essentially given the appearance that they are in control, that the city is being policed by creating rules that, may put them in the way of residents, like open container laws. Those kind of laws are sort of destroying the relationship between the community and the police. And it hasn't decreased crime. It hasn't shown that it's effective. But they have instituted this type of concept in different cities. To me, they are classist, racist laws which attack poor people. And you can't attack the poor people, and you can't police everything. Policing by the book actually destroys your relationship with the police. But in a city where there's majority African Americans, and since we have been fighting for equal rights for quite a period of time, and still today we're fighting for equal rights, I think it's imperative that the police that we form a constitutional protection unit to show that the police are on the people's side. And we have a long history where African Americans have been treated very badly in this country, not just here in this city. And when that affects you in a negative way. And our population, we're angry still because of it. I mean, we know the history that exists there. We know that there's still racism out there. You take the Charlotte incident, and, we've been negatively impacted by police brutality in a way that has affected us, not just today, but from the past as well. So it is emotionally draining. You don't get over slavery in a few hundred years. That still is embedded in our society, and the African Americans these days will fight to the death before they allow anything that even resembles slavery again. So we have to ensure all African Americans, and also whites, you have a lot of whites who have stood by African Americans since the Civil War when they freed slaves. They need to bond together. My motto is that black power plus white power equals unstoppable power. So we have to do that together with those whites that are fighting for equal justice for all races, and everything in between as well. And we have to catch these discriminatory acts. In addition to that, the unions are a big issue as well. As you know, they historically are racist organizations. Now, as African Americans started to break barriers into these organizations, they too took on discriminatory attitudes against their own people.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not all white police either. The black police do hold some of the blame for the abuse of authority inside our system as well.
Well, let me not to cut you off. Let me ask you this question then, because you're going right to where I want to go right there. Are you, or have you thought about, or will you back an amendment to remove all union personnel back to police duties and put the amendment in where nobody will get paid to do union business by the city taxpayers? Because the present structure now is that Cleveland union officials are being paid by the taxpayers while they conduct union business.
Right, I am aware of that. And I got to be honest with you, the 1935 Wagner Act, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but this act excluded unions from the public sector because it was thought then that the unions would interfere with the effective management of the city and therefore democracy. The people are the managers when we elect a representative to represent us. And when those managers lose control of these organizations, then they're actually losing control. We're losing control of democracy. And yes, I actually think that unions, we should go back to the 1935 Act in which the unions were not allowed in the public sector. And we probably should also end collective bargaining. Of course, we'll probably have to go to, we'll definitely have to go to Columbus to get that in effect. And then some years ago, we did end collective bargaining, but it was overturned later on.
Right.
But
so
I'm definitely, yeah.
No, not to cut you off. Go ahead. Finish up.
No, yeah, I'm very much for ending collective bargaining and even going to the federal government to see if we can push these people out. Now, the supervisors in the Melissa Williams and Timothy Russell case ordered the officers to cease and desist the chase. They refused their orders. The supervisors are put in there by the managers. The managers are put in there by the police chief, and the police chief is put in there by the mayor. And the mayor, of course, is put in there by the residents of the city. When they disobeyed their orders, they disobeyed the entire population of this city. And even though the mayor we spent close to $1 million to fire 6 police officers, and 5 got their jobs back. And in my opinion, I question the mayor's ability, or any manager's ability, to effectively manage the system when you have interference from the unions. They're too tied up into our government. And it's difficult. It's almost like you're married to these people and you can't get them out. It's like being with a bad husband who abuses you, but you can't get out the relationship because you're too intertwined monetarily. So, yes, I am in favor of not only just ending the unions. Private sector unions are one thing. Public sector unions are a whole nother.
Now, so the next question from the chat room, you really answered that, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. So you would be in favor also of, if you can't get rid of the union, but you would be in favor of removing binding arbitration from all contracts where the arbitrator wouldn't have the say-so to put people back to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in the case where we couldn't end collective bargaining or get the unions out the public sector, you have to realize that these people are an empire inside an empire. And the way you take down empires is you have to attack them monetarily. You have to take away their resources. So anything that would weaken unions, and in my opinion, we would have to bring them down to size. Because it's no way that we can continue living in a republic which is supposed to be governed by the people, but we have interference from these unions. So we have to break them down to size and take their power away. And anything that would do that, I would be in favor of. And there are lots of things in those union contracts that people don't see. It's not overt. That is really protecting classist, racist elements inside our police departments. So yes, I would definitely be in favor of anything that depowers them.
Now,
and arbitration would be one of them.
The second question out of the chat room from Facebook Live is that would you be in favor of appointing a special prosecutor to go before a grand jury on all police shootings instead of having your law department or the city prosecutor who works with the police handle their cases?
In fact, I wanted to appoint an independent prosecutor for the city of Cleveland. We do have a prosecutor now that sits atop the Police Civilian Review Board, but again, as you said, that person is chosen piecemeal from different organizations and agencies inside the government, and the police union president is one of those people that chooses that person. So I'm in favor of appointees. Unions also make contributions to judges and politicians. We have to remember that. And when they make these kind of contributions to them, they have heavy influence on them. So I think an appointed prosecutor with no influence except from the branch that is controlled by the people would be advantageous for the city.
Now let's move right here. Hold on for 1 minute. YouTube Live, welcome for joining us. Facebook Live, Snapchat, Instagram, and our 17 sister cities. We're talking with a 57 mayoral candidate, Dyrone W. Smith. He's a young man. He's new into politician. He started his own campaign. He went out by himself. He got 6,000 signatures to get him placed on the ballot, and he's very serious about changing the outlook of the city of Cleveland, and we're talking with him right now. So, Mr. Smith, what I want to do, I want to go right here. I want to go to the third issue right here because I want to get go a little bit further in here. Our schools are graduating probably about 45%. Out of the 45%, maybe 32% go to higher learning, and another 12 to 13% is graduating below the standards that the state have, which means they're coming out of school. They can't even read properly or understand. You, as being the mayor now, will be in charge of the schools. With all the federal cuts that's coming for charter schools, what would you do to change that around?
Oh, wow, that's a whole lot you can do in these schools. Now, again, we have organizations like the unions that's an impediment. But I can tell you the biggest issue for our school system here in the city of Cleveland is the fact that it's working with 2.5 fingers of the invisible hand theory. It's all self-interest but no motivation for change or progress. And I liken that to a race. When governments enter into markets, they create oligarchical and monopolistic structures. Monopolistic in structures like Cleveland, where you have very poor populations that can't afford other options, educational alternatives. And people are just showing up for work, and they're not doing it. You know, they have no interest in educating our children. And their only interest in the school system is a paycheck. And so we have to stop that. The school plan put in place by the mayor, I do agree with that plan, and I like to I would like to proliferate that and probably go a little further. Now, many of our students are not college ready or even college or even college bound. Some people, I have friends who just could not go to college. I went to college, but not everybody does that. So I think we need to have training programs inside our schools, and they've taken them out. They do have them in some schools, but we need to offer a variety of training programs and also arts programs that would hold our students' interest in school who maybe lose interest after, when you get up to the 12th grade, it's pretty hard to get up and go to school every single day without your mom cracking you over the head to get out of bed. So, we have to diversify our arts program. Our students here are good at dancing, they rap, they can do recording. It's all different things. And not every student is a sports player. So I understand that they want to keep the sports in there, but, sports is not the center focus of school. It keeps the kids interested. It keeps them coming. That's good. But then what about the other kids? What interests do they have in school? So we definitely need to diversify our arts program. And we also need to bring back things like parenting classes, home economics, things that gives our children life skills that they can use in the real world after high school. Auto body, auto mechanic, nursing assistant. That's a big thing to do. It's a 2-week, 3-week course or so, and that can be taught in our schools. I think it's very imperative that we give our children some learning that is hands-on, not just college-bound. The other thing I noticed about this school system, too, as I talk to parents on the campaign trail, is that many of their students are being asked to be forced into IEPs. Now, once in these IEPs, they're not only trapped inside the public schools because many of the charter schools don't have the resources to accept children with IEPs, but they also have to take the standardized assessment, but they don't have to pass it. And two of my kids, I have 2 kids now, including public schools. I won't say what schools they go to, but they give you a calendar. And in the calendar, it says, well, the biggest sign of success is graduation. No, it's not, because graduation without education is pointless. And what we need to do, and I don't know why they changed this for certain schools, but what we need to do is bring kids in and test them, let's say in October or September when they first start school, to see what levels they're working at. Then once we know where their strengths and weaknesses lie, we can strengthen those weaknesses and encourage them to focus on their strengths as well. Start children off, I call it the invisible hand of education. It's what we do inside of colleges. We should turn our entire school system into a college system. And when you go into college, they give you a test. And based on that test and where you grade at, that's where they start you off at. They don't, just put you into the 8th grade knowing that you're only doing 2nd grade math. So they'll send you to a 2nd grade math class to relearn this stuff over again, and you move up to 3rd, 4th grade, and then we need to expedite those classes for older kids. And we need to get rid of the grading scale. As long as you can be average enough in these classes, you should be able to pass these courses all the way up until you get to your right grade. And how would an 8th grader feel if he's in 2nd grade mathematics with a little boy who's 8 years old? It would motivate him to do better. It would also, if a second grader is in 6th grade mathematics and they know they're supposed to be in 2nd grade, it motivates them to be better and encourages them. So it's the invisible hand of self-interest and competition that would guide our school systems. If we implemented that, I think we can start to see some movement on our test scores.
Now,
go ahead.
Okay, not to cut you off. Coming back around, before I leave the schools, no, go ahead and finish. Are you finished with what you was going to say about the schools and test scores?
Oh, well, I think the biggest issue is that if we can start moving test scores, that we need to diversify our school system. They're already doing it with the charter schools. One of the things, it's like a race. If, let's say, our school system, parents do not have other educational alternatives. So instead, what you have school personnel doing, these people are getting paid $100,000 a year. I have no idea why our kids are failing. But when you're in a race with other runners, you have to train at least as hard as those other runners in the race. But if the parents can't find alternative education, can't afford it, you don't have anybody else in a race. You're the single runner inside the race. I mean, you don't have to lose weight. You can smoke a cigar and walk as you go across the finish line. And so that's the problem in our school systems, that it lacks a market and competition. We are starting to get that off the ground, but charter schools are uncharted territory. And I believe that we have to get all these organizations that have a self-interest inside our school system. Now, these people are getting paid upwards of $60,000, $70,000 a year, and they're still asking for more money for a $750 million failure in our school system. So everybody else's interest got to come out these schools except our students' interest. That's going to be imperative. And if they don't like that, then, it took a long time for us to lose our power. We didn't say anything when the mayor took away our power in the school system. The General Assembly did. And we should say something about it now. The other missing component is parents. I've had an open conversation with a teacher, and I asked her, she was talking about how rough it is in the neighborhood. She said, well, it don't really bother me. I said, well, why would you want to come down here if it's so rough down here? She goes, well, because I can't stand the suburban parents. Those parents are crazy. She said, I can't deal with the parents. I said, well, why you come down here? And she honestly told me that parents don't have any power. You have more help from the school system against the parents. And that's because there's no motivating factor. But even teachers are starting to realize now today that they're going to need the assistance of parents in our school system.
Now, let me ask you, not to cut you off, let me ask you this question right here because we're running on the time. But let me ask you this. Out of the chat room from Twitter, what is your plan to revitalize the neighborhoods and to stop tearing down all these vacant houses and probably rehab them and make our citizens homeowners and to bring people back into the communities that's been neglected by the Jackson administration?
Well, in my opinion, I think that entrepreneurship is crucial to this. Many of us, you have people that go to prison, they get out of jail, they can't find a job. I say create your own jobs. And we have to make it easier for those citizens to create their own jobs. I wanted to introduce to the city a theoretical concept called gray markets, where black and white market goods can be sold. Residents from Cleveland would get a reduced rate in the gray markets, and the city would provide short-term capital for those people coming into the city or as prospective entrepreneurs. Then, if you're a felon, let's say, and you live in the city of Cleveland, you get a double reduction in the rates for short-term capital. They got this box spot. I'm really excited about that. I would like to see that go up. And the mayor has, in my opinion, I think the mayor has done very good in his investments and his long-term outlook to provide economic stability for the city. I don't think that he's done bad in that way. So some of the programs that he has brought in and the developers he's brought in, I would like to keep that going. The Opportunity Corridor, it's a 3.5-mile, $331 million, 35-mile-per-hour boulevard, which extends from 55th from I-490 all the way to University Circle. I think that would bring a lot of investment in. I look forward to continuing those programs. But certainly, you have to start lower, too. You have to bring people in, co-ops, which is something I wanted to introduce into the city where neighborhoods can actually pool their resources together to buy businesses around the community. That would be a way to track the money inside our communities. Residents have to be empowered to become entrepreneurs in our communities. And right now, you go to every corner store, it's near. I don't have any problems with these people, but every corner store is owned by a foreigner. But it's not owned by people inside the city. So we need to pool our resources together to keep that money back into the community. In addition to that, we could also leverage city dollars, which can be set aside. We can sell bonds on the open market and leverage those dollars to bring more money into the city. But it has to be low enough for the residents to be able to participate, and then it has to be high enough so that they'll get a higher return on their investments. As far as the housing, the co-ops would be a good thing to do too. That's a very good plan for us to pool our resources together to renovate some of these houses. Now, some of these houses, they're beyond renovation. They just have to be torn down. But there are houses that can be renovated and then sold. People who make investments in these co-ops to buy these dilapidated houses can then work inside these houses, for menial stuff, things like painting, cleaning, moving trash out. They can pay them. We can pay ourselves, and you can create jobs in that way. I thought that Zach Reed came up with a good plan. In fact, it was my plan. I thought he stole my plan. But I don't actually think that Zach stole my plan. I think it was his, but everybody was thinking. There's other people that's in this race that are just candidates for council members that I've talked to that had the same plan. So,
wait a minute, hold on, don't go nowhere. Explain that plan. What is it? Something that you just said, or is it something that you haven't told us about yet?
Yeah, just creating co-ops, nonprofit organizations where the residents of the city in a certain neighborhood can pool their resources together to buy dilapidated houses and renovate them.
Okay.
And as far as the houses that cannot be renovated, I think the city should go ahead and tear those down. Now, the mayor also has a plan on the table to renovate about 100 houses over there in the Cedar block between 93rd and 105. Yeah, he has a plan for that, and then about 500 more residents are going to go up along that corridor on 105. There's an $11.1 million IBM facility going up, which is a medical analytic organization.
Yeah, that's the Fairfax neighborhood.
That's right, the Fairfax Development Corporation. I'm guessing it's supposed to pick developers. Right. They have Playwright Square. You know, I don't dislike the mayor's plan. His plan for the future, I just think that he sat on his hands the first 2 terms, and his third term, he's been getting busy. Like when you want to get elected again, that's kind of what you would do, you know. But I don't think that the mayor's current economic plan is bad. I mean, I think it's a hell of a good plan.
Okay, but straight out, let me ask you this question, because everybody's asking this. Where do you stand for the $175 million Q deal?
That we have to be careful there. We have to be careful that our emotions don't override our benefits. The Cavs could be analogous to the Browns when Mayor Michael White was mayor. We could be chasing them all the way to Baltimore to bring them back. We still had to build a new stadium in order to get a new set of Browns. We don't want to have to do that for these Cavaliers. We want to keep them here. They are a source of revenue for the city, including the tourism that we're receiving. If you went out on West 25th, it's a lot of tourists down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to. This has to be a measured approach. I would suggest that we renegotiate with all the parties involved, and I don't suggest that it has to be the citizens. I don't mind renegotiating maybe a deal where the Cavs can pay a little bit more in rents, and you know, maybe we can get the county to sell a few more bonds so that we don't have to come out of so much money, so we can make the investments back into our communities.
So not to cut you off again, I'm sorry, but so if you are the mayor, because that after the election, you know they're going to have to do a special election because the courts ruled that it has to go to the ballot. So your position would be that you would go out and campaign to do the deal, but get a better deal.
Yeah, we would definitely have to renegotiate something. If it's just insisted on by the people of the city, you know, as the mayor, you have to represent the people's desires and wants, and if they want something, you have to do your best to try to get it. But you also have to be honest with the people as well. If it's not achievable, it's not achievable. This is a very small city to be having 3 teams. We have a football team, we have a basketball team, and a hockey team. We have a baseball team. And it's a lot of money that goes into maintaining these teams. We do not want to lose these people. They are a big source of revenue, and they provide a sense of economic stability for the city. So we don't want to mess anything up. We don't want to have these people leave. So I would suggest that we renegotiate the deal with all interested parties and go from there.
So just before we get ready to cut you down, because I know that you gave us a time limit, we went a little bit over. But let me ask you this one question before you go there. The people in the chat room are talking about what are you going to do for the neighborhoods by bringing it, how cities build up, but the east side has been left. The Waterloo area is built up. Harvard area has been left. So what would you do to bring the services back? And while you telling us what you would do to bring the services back, what would you do to bring the sewer and water and electrical rates down but keep the same service?
Well, I know some years ago the CEO who was just elected to be over the Clean Public Power actually stopped some of the rates that were being charged. Definitely, as far as the sewage is concerned, That's a tight issue right there because the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has implemented a consent decree for Northeast Ohio. And apparently there are sewer overruns that are going into tributary streams and even the lake. This is our drinking water. We definitely need to make those upgrades. It's imperative that we do that. Some of the solutions that I thought about doing was lowering the eligibility requirements for the affordability and homestead programs to allow more people to get reductions in sewer and water. We also could institute a water conservation campaign to reduce water usage and consumption. We could challenge the constitutionality of Northeast Ohio Sewer District's ability to charge base fees to its residents. We don't want to get into no tug of war with these people, but at the same time, we want fair rates. This has to be done by 2020. The consent decree requires it, and I'm sure that these base charges are a way for them to collect the $3 billion they're going to need to finish the project by 2021. And it's difficult to tell them not to do it because it's an environmental hazard for the city, and it's a health hazard as well. So it's difficult to say that we should not do it, but at the same time, it's difficult to say that, we have to do something about the water prices. They are very high. We also could use some of the money that we've raised through this tax increase to start our own Affordability Act. We can give tax abatements out to homeowners to make up for some of the costs that they're losing inside their water bills. It's a number of different ways that we can do it, but those are the main ways that I would tackle the issue to move us forward and to provide our citizens with some kind of relief.
Okay, Mr. Dyrone W. Smith, I want, before we let you go off the air, I know you've been paid, you've been going on with us, and we really been enjoying talking to you. I want you just to take the next 2 minutes and talk to the residents of the city of Cleveland and tell them why they should give you the look at and the shot to be their next mayor. Go ahead and talk to our listeners.
Yes. Well, my name is Dyrone Smith. I've been a 28-year resident of the city of Cleveland. I was born in this city. Most likely I'll die here as well. I have a vested interest in the improvement of the city. My children go to the same public schools that your children probably go to. I know that I've seen some things in the public schools that I did not like, and I'm sure that you have as well. The biggest problem that we're having in our communities is a lack of investment, and especially on the east side, in our schools, in our streets and roads, and in our businesses. And I would like to be the person to deliver that for you. I do have formal training in corporate management. I have a business management degree. And in addition to that, I have a strong economics background. I studied public finance, public sector economics, managerial economics. And I like to put those skills to work to benefit the city and the residents, and of course, my children and yours, because I do have a vested interest. And that's pretty much why I would think I would be a better choice. And we need to stop corruption. Corruption is rampant here in this community, and I think it needs to be stopped. That is a big issue, I think, that needs to be solved, but we can only do that if we purge all of our local politicians as they exist today. They've sat on their hands for several years and not did anything except around election time. I think that's a big issue with our communities, and we need to move them out. It's time for a change. It's time for us to stop being lied to in our school systems. It's time for us to stop being viewed as criminals by the police department. It's time for us to move forward in this city on race relations in our community. And it's time for a change.
Well, Mr. Smith, thank you very, very much for being with us on Stop the Madness, Keep It 100. We're going to have to get you in our remote studio over in Bracknell, Cleveland area so you can come and spend some time with us. Maybe we can sit down before the election and have you come in studio where you can get some phone calls, where you can do a live show with us. We get with you and have you doing that. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard the 57 mayoral election candidate, Dyrone W. Smith. Give him a look, find out where his town halls are at, find out where they're going to have the debate. I think the next one's coming up is for the City Club, and everybody needs to remember one thing. Democracy has responsibility, and you must get out and vote. Early voting starts August 15th. Get out and vote. And make sure that you vote before the primary on September the 12th. And to everybody, democracy has responsibility, and you must participate. Right now, on Stop the Madness, Keep It 100, we're going to go into the chat room with D Knows later on, but we're going to be right back.